take a look at finding the equations of a circle given the center and the radius, and also finding the center and radius of a circle when given the equation. So this is going to be a refresher and on how to write the equation of a circle and how to use that information to figure out the center and radius. And we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to come up with the equation for a circle. So first, go ahead and take a look at the warm-up. What you want to do is find the radius of the circle and then go ahead and unpause the video to check your answer. So to find the radius of the circle, we know that we want to go from the center of the circle out to a point that is on the exterior of the circle. So to find that distance, we could use our distance formula, or we could use the Pythagorean theorem by creating a right triangle. And so if we do that, what we see is we have a distance of 2, we have a distance of 4. So what we have here is we have 2 legs of a right triangle. So we could take the Pythagorean theorem. We'd have 2 squared plus 4 squared equals our radius. So we'll call it r squared. So this is r, that's our radius. And then what we have is we have 4 plus 16 equals r squared. So you get r is equal to the square root of 20. And that comes out to be approximately 4.47 units. So that is a way to find the radius of our circle. Now, when might you need to know how to use or write or use the equation of a circle? All right, so why do you need to know this? Just take, for instance, the video game industry. When you're developing video games or computer games, what you need to do is whenever you see a circle on the screen, so anytime a circle is created on a screen, you have to be able to type in or have the computer come up with the equation of that circle on the screen using a coordinate grid. So how do we come up with the equation that represents the circle on the screen in any video games you're playing? So what we're going to do, so in the last lesson, we used a distance formula to find the lengths of segments in a coordinate plane. The distance formula can also be used to find the equation of a circle. So our question is, what we want to find is, what is the equation of a circle with radius r and center hk? That's what we want to know. We want to know how do we find the equation of that. So if we look at this, we're going to graph each of these circles. We have circle A and circle B. Circle A is given to us by the center of 1, -2, so 1 and then -2, and then it has a radius of 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 1 point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's another point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's another point. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's another point. So there's one circle, and we're going to go ahead and try to draw the circle to the best of our ability. Hopefully Notability helps us out here some. And there we go. Not too bad. So there's the first circle. And then let's look at our second circle. We have a radius or a point center at 0, 2. So we have 0, 2. Radius is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if we draw in our circle using Notability's helpful little feature of creating a perfect circle for us, we get something that looks like, come on Notability. And apparently it thinks I want to make a polygon. There we go. So there's our circle. And so step 2, if you look at it, it says on each circle select any point and label it xy. Use the distance formula to write an equation for the distance from the center of the circle to xy. So if you find any point on here, we have that point right there. So if we wanted to do this, what we would come up with is we would have, for circle A, what we would come up with is we would have x minus 1. So we don't know what this point is. So it's x, y. So what we would have is we would take, so we'll call this x2, y2. And then we have this point right here, which is 1 comma negative 2, which we'll call x1, y1. So if you recall, the distance formula said that you would take, so you'd have, for that, the distance formula would be x2 minus x1, so you'd have x minus 1, and then you'd square that, and then you would have the, and then you'd have plus, you'd have y2, so y minus y1, so that'd be plus 2, since it's minus negative 2. We'd square that, and then that would be equal to that distance squared. So remember, again, all we're doing here is we're sort of figuring out that distance by using the distance formula. We'd have this distance, which is our radius, squared. So the radius in this case was 8, so we'd have 8 squared. So what we come up with is we have this equation of x minus 1 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 64. Similarly, if we pick any point on this triangle right here, we'll call this x, y. We don't know what it is, but what we would have, so the circle B, we would have, this point is 0, 2, so we'd have x minus 0 squared plus y minus 2 squared is equal to, and the radius of that circle was 6, so it would be equal to 6 squared. So that would simplify into x squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 36. So what you see here is we're able to come up with an equation for each of these circles using the distance formula. And so what I want you to do in step 3 is go ahead and create another circle of your own and try to replicate that with what we did with the distance formula up there and see what you notice. Now, what you should notice is that each of these equations, it's x minus something. And if you look at these numbers, you see 1, 1. Then this was y minus negative 2. But we wrote plus 2 because when you subtract a negative number, it's the same as addition, but you have negative 2, negative 2. And then you have 0, 0. You have 2, 2. And so what do you notice? You should notice here that the number that you're subtracting from x and y are the centers of the circle. And then what you get is you get an equation where if you have a circle with radius r and the center is hk, then the equation for the circle is x minus h, which is the x coordinate of your circle, or center of your circle, and then plus y minus k squared, and that's equal to r squared. So the equation for any circle is going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, and h and k represent the centers of the circle. So in example A, it says write an equation for the circle with center 5, 4 and radius 7. So h, k. So you have x minus 5 squared plus y minus k. K is equal to 4, so y minus 4 squared is equal to 7 squared. And if we simplify that, we have x minus 5 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 49. Now, in example A, we found the equation of a circle when we were given the center and the radius of the circle. How would we find the center and radius of a circle if they give us the equation? So you'll notice here in example B, they give us a problem that is, or an equation that is not necessarily written in the form that we just saw as a circle. So what we need to do is we need to rewrite this in the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And so in order to do this, what we would need to do is we would need to use something from Algebra 1 called completing the square. And so what we would do is we would look at this into two pieces. We would look at x squared minus 4x and y squared plus 2y, and we would complete each of the squares for those terms. So again, remember to complete the square. You take your x term, so you take coefficient of x term, and by x term I mean, I really should say coefficient of the linear term, divide by 2, and then square it. And when you complete the square, you have to add on whatever this number is, add to both sides. So what does this look like? So if we look at x squared minus 4x, if I take negative 4 and I divide that by 2, I get negative 2. If I square negative 2, I get positive 4. So I have x squared minus 4x plus 4. But I have to add that to both sides. So 20. So since I'm adding 4 to the left side, I have to add 4 to the right side. Then if I take 2, the coefficient of the linear term right here, I take 2 divided by 2, I get 1. I square that, I get 1. So I have plus y squared plus 2y plus 1. But I have to add 1 to both sides. So now what we have is we can factor this this quadratic right here. That gives us x minus 2 squared. And then we can factor this quadratic. That gives us y plus 1 squared. And that's equal to 25. The question is, what are the coordinates of the center and radius? The center is going to have the coordinates of 2, negative 1. Okay? And in order to figure that out, if you ever can't remember, you take x minus 2, set it equal to 0. Solve for x, you get 2. Take y plus 1, set it equal to 0. Solve for y, you get negative 1. And those are the coordinates of your circle. Now, the radius, a common mistake that people might say is they'll say the radius is 25. But remember, this is r squared. So r squared is equal to 25. R is equal to 5. So go ahead and begin working on the homework. If you have any questions, message me, email me, or ask me questions in class the next day. There are some questions. There are 2 questions where you have to complete the square, so that needs to be sort of a refresher. You should try to make sure you understand how to do that. So go ahead and start working on the homework and ask questions the next day in class.